Okay, we'll call the March 24th, 2025 meeting to order. I'll stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Mayor, if I could, and I appreciate you're moving pretty quickly, but I believe that we're looking at taking one of the consent agenda items, 6H, and moving it to 4C as an action item. That is my understanding.
Okay,
With that, if Councilmember Mundell could move as amended.
I'll amend the motion to move consent agenda item 6H to 4C under presentations and public hearings under the Fire Department monthly report.
second. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Presentations. The audit.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you. The 2024 annual financial report has been prepared, audited, and is presented for review and approval for tonight's meeting. Abdo's Kelsey Larson is here to present the audit report to council.
Good evening, everybody. So my name is Kelsey Larson, and I'll be going through the 2024 financial statement audit with you tonight. As you may notice, you do not have the 2024 finalized audit with you today. We are still waiting on PARA to release the fire relief report so we can make our final pension adjustment. So once we get that done, we will finalize the audit. However, it does not change any of the numbers that you're going to see today. Any questions on that? Awesome. So we'll keep it brief tonight. We're just going to go through your audit opinion and responsibility. We'll go through each of your funds and then also some key performance indicators as well. So I do just like to start off reminding you that as auditors, we are engaged to opine on your financial statements on whether or not they're presented fairly and free from material misstatement. We do this through a series of testing, such as talking with your employees. We sample your invoices. We get confirmations from your banks and the county, really anything that we deem necessary to form that opinion. And like years past, we did issue an unmodified opinion stating that your financial statements are presented fairly. Along with our regular audit testing, we're also required to test the city's compliance on Minnesota statutes, and we had no instances of non-compliance noted there. So digging into the numbers here, this first chart is going to show you your general fund's fund balance as a percentage of next year's budgeted expenses. So you currently do have that policy of 40%. However, you're in that yellow line that's above that 40%, and the last 3 years you've really been able to increase that fund balance, ending the year at 75%. And then digging a little bit deeper into that increase in your fund balance, we have your general fund budget to actual. So you had budgeted for a decrease in your fund balance of $225,000, however ended the year with an increase of just over $500,000. The main contributor there is going to be your revenues coming in over budget by $460,000. This is mainly due to building permits and interest income coming in higher than you had anticipated for. And then also your expenditures came in under budget by about $228,000, and that was due to public safety personnel expenses. I know you had budgeted for a community outreach position, however, that was not fulfilled during the year, contributing to that variance. So overall, ending the year with fund balances of $5.2 million. Then we can dig a little bit deeper into your general fund revenues. So overall, a decrease in revenues of about $225,000, and that's going to come from that intergovernmental line as you had received the public safety aid in 2023. Overall, every other type stayed pretty consistent. A little bit of an increase in your property taxes. That's just going to be levy increases and then delinquent collections as well. General fund expenditures increased about 290,000 throughout the year. Most of those departments stayed very consistent from 23 to 24. The bigger variance coming from public safety, as you had an increase in the police protection services, but you had budgeted for those, so they did not affect your year-end increase. Next, we have your capital project fund balances. So just listing all of those projects out there. Going through a few of the larger variances, we have your street capital fund did have an increase of about 100,000, and that's mainly going to be some transfers in for current and future costs. We have your municipal state aid street improvement, which decreased almost 200,000, and that's just going to be timing of expenses and then those state aid draws coming in. Some of your non-major funds, the park acquisition had a pretty good increase of 154,000. That's going to be those park dedication fees coming in. And then lastly, that park capital fund decreased about 80,000, and that's just due to some of those projects you had spending down that fund balance. So I think you had a beach project and then the Maynard Park as well. And then that bottom chart just shows you where those fund balances are sitting. So it really depends on the revenues that are coming in, such as like bonds would be restricted, like a transfer in that you assign for a certain purpose would show up under assigned. And then the unassigned fund balance is going to be any deficits you have. So that's going to be that MSA fund and that 181st Street project. Those will be corrected with future draws on that state aid. Next, we have your special revenue fund balances. So that's going to be your recycling and your HRA fund. The HRA fund did increase about 80,000. That's due to the fund receiving the local housing aid this year. And all of that fund balance is sitting in restricted. Next, we have your governmental debt service fund. So just the 2 bonds outstanding, ending the year just under 15 million of a liability. Both of those mature in 2040. And then we also have your next 10 years of debt payments sitting around the 1 million to about 1.3 million for the next 10 years. Moving into our enterprise funds here, the next couple of slides are going to look similar as we have the 2 similar chart types here. So that first top chart is going to show you kind of what's coming in versus what's going out. So the left side being your operating receipts and the right side being your operating costs. As an enterprise fund, also known as a business type fund, we do want to see these making money for the city, as a lot of these funds pay for a lot of the improvements. They have a lot of equipment needed in these funds, so they need that cash reserve to be able to pay for those things. So looking at the water fund, we do see positive margins with that left side being higher than the right. Overall operating costs have been pretty consistent with even a decrease from 23 to 24. And then moving on to the bottom graph here, we have your cash balance compared to our minimum target balance, which we have as 50% of your operating costs. So as you've been able to keep those operating costs pretty low, that minimum target balance is pretty low to the bottom there. And then a pretty sharp increase each year, ending the year at a cash balance of 2.2 million. The sewer fund in 2024 looked a little different as you had a higher debt payment on that reserve capacity loan. Overall, if we took that out, you would have positive margins there as you've been able to keep those operating costs pretty consistent. So I think as long as you have a plan in order to pay that debt, I think this fund will do fine. As we can see, even with that larger debt payment, your cash did increase to 1.3 million at year end and is still meeting that target balance. The Ice Arena Fund is one that kind of flip-flops with positive and negative margins. I do know with 2024 you took those management expenses in-house. I think as you kind of learn that, you can hopefully find your sweet spot in those expenses, hopefully be a little bit lower. I also know that rentals were down this year just with unfulfilled teams and teams practicing elsewhere. So if we can get those revenues back up and then kind of find where our expenses need to be, hopefully we can get that back up to positive margins. With your cash, that is trending downwards just with those negative margins in your operating costs and receipts. however, still meeting that target balance. Then your internal service funds here, we just have your cash balances. Those are sitting right under 2.5 million for the year, and most of that sitting in that equipment replacement fund. And then we have your cash investment balances by fund type. So ended the year with a $1.7 million increase in cash, and that's mainly going to be in those enterprise funds that we talked about with those large increases in cash. Next couple of slides are going to be some key performance indicators. I will just let you know the state hasn't released the 2023 data yet, so we can only compare you to your peers from 2020 to 2022. The first couple here are going to be around your taxes. So your tax rate has been trending down, however, stayed very consistent from 23 to 24 in that 31 percentile. And you have been staying right at the top of the Anoka County cities. And then taxes per capita staying very consistent, right at the same level as the county. And then your debt performance indicators, overall very consistent, as you have not released or issued any more debt in these last 5 years. So debt per capita has stayed right in that 1,200 range, and then debt service expenditures as a percentage of current expenditures, a little bit of a decrease from 21 to 22, and then thereon very consistent. And lastly, we have some expenditures indicators. The first one, current expenditures per capita. You've been able to keep that right at that $500 mark, and you are well below the Class 3 cities and then also Anoka County cities. And lastly, capital expenditures per capita. Really hard to compare to cities just because the timing of projects is going to be varying from city to city. While you have higher expenses, your peers might be having lower expenses, so they kind of average out right at that 400. But you obviously in 2021 had a project or more equipment to buy, so you're seeing a higher year there, and then 22 to 24, you've been able to keep it low. And that is all I have for you guys, unless there's any questions.
I do have a couple of questions, and it's mostly because I didn't understand some of the verbiage on here. For instance, why are our capital assets decreasing? And there is some places on here that had an increase and a decrease, and that didn't make sense. But on page 21, it showed our capital assets decreasing, and I thought capital assets were more permanent. So can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so capital assets, we capitalize something to spread costs across like 10, 15 years, as they're a big expense. So instead of expensing that right away, showing the decrease in your fund balances, we spread that cost across 10, 15 years. So what you're seeing each year is there's a chunk of each asset getting depreciated, and so we're showing that expense each year.
All right, and so I don't know if you can answer this, but the Ice Arena operating expenses have increased. I thought when the city took it over, it would decrease. So can you tell me where that increase occurred, or was it in?
Yeah, I can't off the top of my mind. I don't know, Mike, if you know of anything.
Yeah, for the most part, the reason for the increase in expenses is there was, we obviously overlapped a little bit with the Gibson management contract, and then when we transitioned to, internally running it, so there was a little bit of overlap there to get the operation back to the city running it. The main reason why the cash actually decreased by that amount this year is because we bought a scoreboard at the beginning of 2024. Again, that's just a one-time expenditure. So moving forward into 2025, depending upon what the needs are, obviously I don't think we're going to be buying a scoreboard again, but in order to kind of get those operating revenues back in line with expenses, we bumped up the primetime ice rental fee from $192 per hour to $210 per hour. So with that, along with again, some of those one-time expenditures kind of going away, we're looking at getting those revenues back in line with the expenditures.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then, I really hate asking dumb questions, but I don't know what it means. What is an over expenditure?
An over expenditure?
Yes, I saw that in a couple of different places. What is over expenditure? What does that mean? I just need it
I
defined.
think it's when your expenditures are over your revenues. If you're looking at the financial
Okay.
statements, I would have to see exactly where you're talking about to make sure that's correct.
Okay, well, it's on page 26, but anyway, that makes more sense. I didn't know if it had to do with we're spending more money than we're supposed to, or if it's over the revenue, or if it's over what we're supposed to spend. I didn't understand what it meant. Then can you explain or somebody explain the antenna leases? Because I didn't understand that whole page, because they mature, and I just didn't understand what that was talking about.
Yeah, so you are renting antenna space on your water towers and you're getting money in for that. So it is a new GASB standard. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago where we had to record those on your books to show you're a receivable because you're receiving the money. So they're really long leases usually, and they have a lot of extension periods. So basically what that's doing is we're taking what we assume you're going to get. So if we say the latest maturity is 2040, say, we're gonna say you're receiving this much money, we're gonna give it a present value calculation, and then we're gonna put that on your books as a receivable.
So for the future years, those are estimations then, and not,
Yeah, because they do, sometimes the interest rate's changing or the monthly amount is changing, so it is a little bit of an estimate, but it should be hopefully pretty accurate to the present value of that money.
all right, and then my final question is, you have some places in the same column, it had an increase, and then it also had a decrease. And that's on page one, an example is on page 57. I think I saw it on a couple different charts, but do you know, how does that work, where you can have an increase and a decrease simultaneously?
Do you know what you were looking at?
Let me go back to get out of this.
Is it capital assets?
Yeah, I think it's this line here, probably construction in progress.
Okay, so construction in progress, so you're increasing, so you're putting money towards a project, and then once that project is done, we capitalize it, so that's when it's decreased from construction in progress. So if something's decreased from construction in progress, then it's getting added as a capital asset's being depreciated down below.
Okay,
Yeah,
Complicated.
construction, yeah.
A lot of
And
this,
then, like a capital asset being depreciated, if you buy like a machinery or equipment position, that's going to be the increases. But if you sell something, that's going to be in the decreases. So we don't show it net. We show kind of what you added and also what you disposed of.
right.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
For this specific line item, this is all with your street projects. So as your street projects are kind of going, this construction in progress is utilized, this line item. So if they're not done at the end of the year, we increase that amount. And if they are completed at the year end, then we take them off this construction in progress and actually move them to a fixed asset.
Got it,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
So overall, how does the city look financially?
I think it looks really well. I think, as you can see, your fund balance in the general fund has been increasing exponentially. I think, especially with you guys being able to keep your costs pretty low, I think with inflation and everything that we've been seeing, that's been pretty rare. So for you guys have been able to keep that consistent, even decreasing in some areas, and then a $500,000 increase in your fund balance, you're sitting good.
Thank you, Mike.
So, any other discussion on this? You're gonna need a motion to accept the audit.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2025-15, accepting and adopting the 2024 City of East Bethel Annual Financial Report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? None heard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Sheriff's report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. February, we had a total of 318 calls for service, which was down from the 368 that we had the month prior. We handled 2 thefts, 2 assaults, and responded to 23 traffic crashes of varying severity. Made a total of 15 arrests for miscellaneous violations. We conducted 183 traffic stops in the city, which resulted in the issuance of 29 separate traffic citations. A couple of our notable calls this past month occurred on the 7th of February at 9:08 p.m. Deputy Martinez stopped a vehicle in the 20500 block of Highway 65 Northeast for some driving conduct. While speaking with the driver, Deputy Martinez noted the odor of an alcoholic beverage and observed the driver to be displaying signs consistent with alcohol impairment. Deputy Martinez had the driver step out of the vehicle and perform standardized field sobriety testing. The driver initially refused, but eventually did get out of the car. The driver refused any additional testing, was transported to jail and booked on the DWI test refusal. On the 11th of February, at 1:21 p.m., Deputy Mo Broughton was dispatched to an address in the 20900 block of Okinawa Street on a motor vehicle theft report. The reporting party reported that their vehicle had been stolen by one of their family members. Deputy Mo Broughton collected the necessary information on that vehicle, entered it as stolen with our dispatch center. Approximately 2 hours later, the vehicle was recovered in Mille Lacs County, and the suspect was arrested. The suspect was transported to Lino Lakes Detention Facility and released to staff there. And then finally, on the 27th of February at 9:12 p.m., Deputy Martinez stopped a vehicle in the 18700 block of Sand Hill Parkway Northeast for another equipment violation. Deputy Martinez spoke with the driver, who provided an ID which clearly wasn't who they say they were. Deputy Martinez questioned the driver and noted inconsistencies in their story while trying to explain exactly who they were. He later learned that the driver had an active warrant out of Meeker County for their arrest. He arrested the driver at the stop location for the outstanding warrant and false information. The driver was transported to jail, where they were released to staff without incident. So, a little bit lower on calls this month, but again, we saw an uptick in self-initiated field activity, which is good to see, especially with the warmer weather right around the corner. And if there's no questions, if I can't answer anything, I'd like to introduce my partners here. I have the distinct pleasure of having 9 of our deputies here accompany me this evening. Now, everyone, these are the deputies that serve you in your city. These are the deputies that are assigned the East Bethel contract in one way, shape, or form. So this year's going to be a little bit different. In years past, I've read their bios. I've called them up one at a time and read their bios, but this year we're going to change it up and we're going to have them say a few words about themselves. I think it's a nice change of pace, and you guys can put a name to a face a little bit easier when they're up here rather than listening to me gab like you do once a month. So Raleigh Sorensen, come on up and join me.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Deputy Raleigh Sorensen. I've been with the Sheriff's Office 22 years, 28 years total in law enforcement. I've done numerous assignments with the county, from FTO to fraud investigator, work in courts. I was Explorer Advisor for 15 years. Prior to that, I was in the Army for 9 years. So I've been in East Bethel for the last, since 2012, minus 3 years I was in investigations. I enjoy it out here. I grew up in Ham Lake, grew up in the county. And we're supposed to say a fun fact about myself. I just realized tonight that I've been doing this job longer than half my partners have been alive. So it kind of makes you feel old. But it is what it is. It's a fun group out here, and that's what I got. So you want to see here.
Derek Lean, come on up.
Yeah, I liked it better when I stood there awkwardly and you talked. I'm Investigator Lean. I sit behind the desk while they do all the real work. I've been with the county for a little over 8 years. April 1st will be 10 years total law enforcement experience. I did almost 2 years in Williston, North Dakota, just right after college. At the office, like I said, investigations. I'm a firearms use of force, active shooter instructor. New on the dive team or the Marine unit. Haven't done anything too cool, but carried a lot of rope around, a lot of gear. Interesting fact is I'm part of the 1,000-pound club as of last year.
Matt Madsen. Yeah, no, wait.
My name is Matthew Madsen. I've been with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office since November of 2014. I started in our jail division as a detention deputy, so from November 2014 to April 2017. That was when I got hired on patrol. So I've been a deputy for just about 8 years now. Some of my specialties include I am a part of our North Command Mobile Field Force unit and recently added as a field training officer as well. Well, interesting fact about me, I guess. My wife is actually on the East Bethel Fire Department, loving it. And I grew up here in East Bethel, so I spent the first 25 years of my life here, so definitely holds a special place in my heart. Happy to serve you guys. Yep.
Tyler Borgeson.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, council members. My name is Tyler Borgeson. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for just over 4 years now. Like my previous partner, I started out in the jail, worked 1 year there before transferring and getting hired on to the patrol division. This will be my second year now serving the East Bethel Power Shift, which is a 2:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. Shift. And like again, my previous partner, I am also part of the North Command Mobile Field Force unit. I was in the Army beforehand as a paratrooper for 4.5 years. And an interesting fact about myself is last year I eloped with my wife to the island of Bora Bora in French Polynesia, and we did not tell our family or friends before.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yeah.
I think we have a couple more left. Tell them to move up, would you? I can't see them. Michael Seafolk.
Hi, I'm Deputy Mike Seafolk. I've been with the Sheriff's Office going on 3 years this summer. Been a sworn peace officer in Minnesota for a little over 6 years now with the agency before here. I'm happy to call County Sheriff's Office home. Currently, I'm a field training officer, use of force instructor on the mobile field force team, and then a drone pilot as well. An interesting fact about me is that I am quite the cribbage player.
Thanks, Mike. Gio.
Hello, I'm Giovanni Martinez. I've been with the Sheriff's Office been a deputy for about 9 months now. I've been with CSO before that for 2 years. I don't have any cool specialties yet since I'm still pretty new, but I'm hoping one day for K9 or SWAT. And then a fun fact is before any of this, I went to high school and was a police explorer down in Arizona for about 2-3 years or so.
Okay. Thanks, Gio. Sergeant Justin Nelson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sergeant Justin Nelson with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. I've been with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office now for just over 13 years, the last 3 of which I've been patrol sergeant. Prior to that, I spent several years as one of the East Bethel contract deputies. This was always my favorite contract to serve. I've been a total licensed law enforcement for 18 years. Prior to this, I was with Mille Lacs County for 5 years. I'm a firearms instructor, use of force instructor. I used to be a diver on the dive team, and I'm a former FTO. Fun fact about me is I raise chickens on the side.
Thanks.
Yep.
So to come full circle, and that's our working staff. These men and women here are of the highest quality. They serve with passion and truly care about the citizens of East Bethel and those of our surrounding communities. So we appreciate the time allowing us to, introduce ourselves. So thank you, everyone. Definitely last but not least, our boss, Chief Deputy Bill Jacobson, would like to say a few words.
Thanks, LT. Good evening, members of the council, mayor, citizens of East Bethel. It's good to be with you tonight. I'll be respectful of your time. Again, my name is Bill Jacobson. I serve as the Chief Deputy for the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. I've been serving in that capacity until just after Brad Wise joined us as our sheriff for Anoka County. And I just wanted to stop out tonight and thank the city of East Bethel for your long-standing partnership with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. I think that partnership has been beneficial for both the city and for our deputies, because it brings highly trained and professional deputies in to your community to protect and serve the folks that live and work here. And I've been a police officer for approximately 20 years. And I tell you one thing, it does go by pretty quick. And I will say I'm very proud of the folks that serve your community and serve across Anoka County. And again, thankful for your long-standing partnership with us. With that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
What's your fun fact?
Fun fact. Let's go with, I'm a huge dog guy. We have two dogs. We have a Great Dane, and he's over 100 pounds, and then we have a 4-pound Chihuahua. Any guesses who runs the show at the house?
The Chihuahua.
It's the 4-pound Chihuahua, absolutely. So that's pretty fun, I guess, to go with that. Thank you.
Any questions from the public? Thank you.
Deputies, if you don't mind coming back in, please. Thank you all very much. We appreciate your support more than you know. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, fire report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and community. My name is Jerry Strike. I'm assisting with administrating the fire department. Fire officers and I are working closely together to keep the fire department moving forward. I want to take a moment. You see in the report, you see the February report regarding the call volume that we have. The fire department continues to go to all types of incidents. So I thought, Mayor, if I could, I would first go through a list of things talking about your great fire department. So in the state of Minnesota, there's approximately 20,000 firefighters, and in 735 fire departments across this great state, protecting 5.3 million citizens, not to mention those that travel abroad and come and visit and spend their cabin time and so on with our Great Lakes. Of the amount of firefighters that are in this state, there's only about 2,500 of them that do it as a career. The firefighters in this state are what we call volunteers. So the state has two definitions that represent a firefighter. They're either a career firefighter, those 2,500, or they're a volunteer, which means it's not their career. The East Bethel Fire Department, established 1959, has been a volunteer department. So they're community responders. They're citizen responders. People just like you and I who have a job and go to soccer and go to football and karate and have to mow the lawn and do all that stuff. But in the event of an emergency, they carry either a pager or they have an app on their phone that's directly connected to the 911 center. And when someone in this community calls 911, they tone out the appropriate response for that type of emergency, whether it be someone that fell down, to a crash, to shooting, whatever it may be. The citizens come together in 3 stations in this community because this community is broken into 2 geographical areas. It doesn't come with a ton of pay, and it doesn't come with a lot of I'd say gratitude, meaning sometimes it's a lonely job, right? But most of the people in my experience are doing it because they want to serve their community and they want to gain extra skills. I too was one of those people. I graduated from high school. I went into the Army and served as a combat medic. I came out at the age 19. I was fortunate enough to get a job as a firefighter. And in order to become a career firefighter, it's almost like signing a professional football contract because they're hard to find. But I spent my entire life in the fire service, moving up the ranks. I've held every title that this county would recognize. I grew up in this county. I live 11 miles from here. I spent 32 years in the fire service, with approximately 15 of those years as a chief officer, meaning at my first chief's job at 37, I managed the largest fire district in the state of Minnesota, multi-city district, and then I went to the city of Andover to help them get through some things. And I retired at 32 years, and I moved into the private sector. And since then, January 31st of 2020, we all know what happened then, right? The pandemic. Everything I was planning to do stopped, but I'm happy to say today I've worked with over 30 communities since I've retired. From everything from starting a fire department from scratch in the city of Otsego, to helping Delano get through some challenges and hire a new chief, to Circle Pine, Centerville, and more. Anywhere from starting a station to designing a brand new fire station, I've done it. Not only that, when I was a chief, I've never had a recruitment problem. I focused heavily on recruitment and made sure that we could balance the time of the firefighters so that they could enjoy their time with us. I started the Anoka County Fire Investigation Team, and I spent many years as an investigator, decades as an investigator, trained by the National Fire Academy, the ATF. In fact, just 3 weeks ago, I got back from investigating the Capitol insurrection in Liberia, Africa. I'm very well experienced in this field. I started the Anoka County Fire Training Academy and the EMS Academy that every new recruit goes to in this county. We're on class 26. I sat on the board of directors for the State Fire Chiefs Association. I was on the executive committee. I sat on the board of directors for the Minnesota Fire Investigators. I work across USA, Africa, and this is not the first time I've been in the position I'm in. I need to make that clear, because there's a lot of misinformation that's out there, and I want to settle some of that. One, I came here about a year ago at the request of the city administrator, who wanted to follow the request of the council, and I was told at the time it was to ensure our firefighters had what they needed, understand the fire service better, and then help them even do it better. And during that time, even though the paper recently wrote that I only met with, or I only did the assessment, I actually met with every council member. I met with 10 firefighters in person. We had 85% of them take the survey, and I met with the chief, and I offered my mentorship to the chief. So when you say that no one knew what was going on in the department, the data was collected based off a whole bunch of people. The community is no longer safe. It's just not true. The community is safe. The firefighters are continue to respond. Hiring me as the interim doesn't make sense. I think it makes perfect sense. I'm 11 miles away. I had time. I conducted a study. I know the area. I've lived here my whole life. And it's almost like the plumber. You get a soft water system in and it doesn't work later. Who are you going to call again? You're going to call the plumber that you worked with. So they called me. And I happened to have enough time to do it. But only until June, because in June I have other contracts I need to pay attention to. There's been discussion about medical related incidents, and that I want to cut out all medical incidents. I want you to know this. I have no authority to do anything. This is the governing body, not me. So I have no authority to do that. However, we go to a lot of calls that statistics show and research show don't provide a lot of benefit. What can a firefighter do with a bleeding tattoo scab? What can a firefighter do with someone who has a pain in their foot when they're volunteers at 2 in the morning? So when we look at providing services, we look at balancing out the service to make sure that we can maintain the volunteer model. So the fire department report, right now we have 29 firefighters. I will say we lost one just this week. We've recently concluded all the policies and procedures. We're going to talk about the emergency operations plan. Spring is coming, so training's picking up. They have training tonight. They're doing water rescue with the sheriff's office. I've worked with the sheriff's office for years. I love the sheriff's office. They're great people. We've dug a lot of scenes in this town. I've actually investigated many fires in East Bethel, including fire fatalities. They're just great people to work with. Spring is near. Disasters could come with tornadoes. So we're working on the emergency operation plan, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this week we had a fire caused by a recreational fire. So they left their recreational fire to burn overnight. It ended up catching the yard on fire, which eventually burnt the garage down. And that's the second one that's occurred recently in East Bethel. So you have to make sure that your recreational fire is put out, because it can smolder for a week. So put it out, rake it out, and make sure it doesn't burn any longer. So Mayor, the emergency operation plan is on the agenda to be approved tonight. The emergency operation plan is required by state law. There is no law that requires a fire department to exist, but there is a law that requires an emergency plan exist. And the purpose of that is to make sure we have a game plan when a disaster strikes. And we're going to provide training to the department heads soon. I'll provide training to the city council so they know their role, and then to the firefighters. In the packet, you received portions of the emergency operation plan. Yes. The community didn't, because that's like the Vikings giving their game plan to the Green Bay Packers. And it's a protected plan, and we want to make sure it stays that way. It really talks about what essential function all of us play when there is a disaster. Everything from a school shooting to a tornado. We have to talk about it. The plan is one thing, and the plan can be done and sitting on the shelf, but if the plan is an exercise, it's not a plan. So we're going to work on training hard. And in my time here, we'll be posting the position, which is really why I'm here, is to help use my experience and the staff that's there to continue to administrate the organization, to keep it going. And, you know, when I wrote that report, obviously there was a lot I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm told that whatever was occurring at that time was going on 1.5 years before I wrote the report. And that report is a little snapshot in time of what was going on. But it provided some really good feedback, right? Firefighters said, the number one thing to focus on is not a 6-wheel ATV. It's not $2 more an hour. It's holding people accountable, right? You know, we had the 80% say there is a bully in the organization. That's a concern. That's an organizational threat. If you want to lose volunteers, create a reality TV show. They'll go away overnight. And we want to make sure that we're consistently looking at all of our organizations, and I'm the outside view. I come in peace. I'm the outside view. When I got here, I knew nobody. I didn't know the chief. I didn't know the city administrator. I knew none of the council members. Of course, I'm sorry, Artie. I know Artie from a long time ago because him and I served this county for a long time. Councilmember Urkel, you and I should have coffee together. I'd like to talk to you because you're the only one I haven't personally met with.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to do that before I leave. And then I'm here for, I don't know, maybe 60 days. But I want to make an impact, and I want to make sure that when the new person comes in, the organization is set in stone, all of our assets are protected, our inventory is done, our policies are in place, our EOP is done, and we can start to move forward and continue to serve as we have since 1959. It's a great department. It really is. There's a lot to do, and I think people, we're going to be doing a recruitment campaign soon. You're starting to see signs around the neighborhood, and I just want to tame down the social media a little bit, because all of those posts that go out have an impact when someone searches and they say, I want to be an East Bethel firefighter, and they see those social media posts. It just doesn't look good. And I would appreciate personally, this is my business, and I know nobody in this room, but they're saying things about me personally and my company. It's just not, it's not nice. And some of it is defaming. But Mayor, I need to ask for you to authorize or approve, review, approve, and adopt the emergency operation plan for the city of East Bethel. We'll have the mayor, the city administrator, the fire chief, and the city attorney review it. Once it's approved, they can adopt it, and we'll use that as the plan to move forward with our training. Any questions or comments?
Well, I have a question. What if, because we haven't seen the whole thing, what if there's something in there that we totally disagree with, that we think this should not be in something for East Bethel because we're more rural, we're more, whatever reason, you know? What if something like that happens? Do we bring it back and we just say, okay, we want to take this out, or how would that work?
Yep, ideally the emergency operation plans are pretty standard from the state level down to the county, down to the community. Most of the front end of those plans are very similar. Like what is a disaster? And it defines what a disaster is. But when we get into the bones of it and the meat of it, it's what the essential function is for each one of you compared to the department heads. You're the policy makers. You may, for example, have to use the ice arena for something. You may have to dig up the park you spent millions of dollars into to get dirt to bring somewhere. Those are the things that you need to, are going to stay on a high level on. We're the firefighters, and I told them that I was a little late getting here because I was meeting with the officers, but their essential function is not medical calls when there's a disaster. It's rescue and fire. And keep in mind, they're the only ones that can wear an air pack in this community and enter what we call an IDLH environment, immediately dangerous to life and health. And when we're focusing on balance, if they're doing too much of one thing, they lose the skill on what we really need those people to do when the call comes out. So to answer your question, it's the last few pages of that where you'll see what the council member's role, your name may even be in it, that says what our role is. But if you're not comfortable with it, you call me and we'll work it out.
Thank you.
I'll go through it with you paper piece by piece if you'd like.
Anyone else? So you need from me the approval.
Yep, I need someone to, go ahead.
Mayor, council members, we'll need a motion and a second to authorize approval of the emergency operating procedure plan, subject to review, approval, and adoption by the mayor, the city administrator, the interim fire chief, any other applicable law enforcement, and city attorney. I hope the public understands that the crisis management plan or the emergency operating plan, whether it be state down to local level, in order to make sure that bad actors and so forth aren't able to use that as a tool against public safety, against our own security and so forth. We need to keep it confidential at the same time to make sure that it's actually implemented. Those individuals I just mentioned, as well as the city council through the training and so forth, need to be apprised of what that plan is, and as Council Member Urkel has aptly indicated, make sure it's something that works for each one, because when and if, and hopefully it doesn't happen, a crisis or emergency occurs. And all hands are on deck. Every hand knows what they're supposed to do. Because when you have a crisis and emergency, you have to act. You can't pause.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the emergency, what's it called, the emergency?
Operating procedure.
Emergency operating procedure, subject to the approval of East Bethel leadership to include the attorney, city administrator, and mayor.
Second that. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to conclude in saying that the East Bethel Fire Department is actively doing a great job. I've witnessed a lot of really good people doing good things. We have members on the team who've been here for 44 years, all the way down to 3 months. Actually, the last time I looked, the average tenure of this organization was almost 12 years, which is almost unheard of nowadays. So the purpose, as I said in my report, we have to find balance so people can live their life and this doesn't become their life. A medical call, as much as I've been on thousands of calls in my career, but there's a lot of research that says only 2% of all medicals in this country are life-threatening. 2%. The rest of them will be picked up by an ambulance, brought to a hospital, and they'll sit and wait for a doctor to come to them, just like the people in the waiting room will. So this group will have to, in the future, discuss what is important to this community. It's the communities should be working, your constituents should be working through you to say what is important. And in order to do that, we have to understand how that balances the life. And I'd like to tell people across the country that our volunteers have an ATM card of time. Because since the pandemic, time has become the new money. And the fire chief has an automatic withdrawal authority to withdraw that time. And if we consistently draw them for things that don't have a lot of purpose, and I don't mean that in any negative way, such as maintenance and car washes and all that stuff, compared to the types of calls that are really important, we're going to have a really hard time finding the staff that we need, because we do need a lot of staff here in this community. We have to really recruit and get people in the doors to keep the stations going. So thank you for your time. Go ahead.
Thank you.
You have a question?
No,
Okay.
thanks.
If anyone in the community wants to talk to me, I have a phone. Feel free to call. Feel free to email me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, 4D.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The requirement of a dog license was originally instituted to ensure that animals were vaccinated and could be easily reunited with their owners if lost. Out of 4,000 plus households, only a few dozen residents have licenses. Social media and microchips combine to make a highly effective way to locate lost pets, and most pets are reunited with their owners before city staff is even notified. For this reason, a growing number of cities in the metro area are eliminating the requirements of obtaining dog licenses. While applying for a dog license does require the owner to provide proof of a current rabies vaccination, rabies are far less common today than in the past. Owners already must present vet records to take out pet insurance or enroll in daycare. When a dog bite is reported, deputies go directly to the owner to ask about vaccinations rather than checking city records. The city does not charge for a dog license, so there is no revenue generated from tracking and issuing licenses. Staff recommends that the City Council open the public hearing and at the conclusion, review and consider approval of the proposed ordinance changes to amend Article 2, dogs, and Article 3, rabies control, that remove the requirements for residents to register their dogs with the city and obtain city dog licenses effective January 1st, 2026.
Do we have a motion?
I think you can just open the public hearing first.
Okay, open a public hearing.
I'm just here if you guys have any questions. Oh.
Any questions? Public hearing on this? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-02. Ordinance changes to amend Article 2 dogs and Article 3 rabies control that remove the requirements for residents to register their dogs with the city and obtain city dog licenses to be effective January 1st, 2026.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None being heard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. Motion passes.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yeah.
Consent agenda.
Public forum. Public forum.
Oh, excuse me, I skipped that. Public forum, looks like we have 3 people. Reminder that you're pretty much limited to 3 minutes. Public forum is limited for 15 minutes as part of the meeting. So with that said, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Jerry covered everything better than I could have. But I really wanted to emphasize 2 things regarding the Fire Chief Emergency Management Director, which is being advertised for. One is that it's a big job, a really big job. It's one of the jobs that carries life and death consequences with it. And that leads me into the second thing, and that's also why it pays very well too. It takes me in the second thing, and that is to encourage real due diligence this time around, because last time, it's been mentioned on social media that there were unfair or good old boy kind of things going on. Well, that's true. Last time, when he was hired, that's what was going on, was people who were friends getting Mr. Sano the job when other people had applied for it who were much more qualified just in terms of their experience. And that thus we wind up here 2 years later. Please do due diligence. It's a really important hire. Obviously, I think Jerry made a good case about his having experience. There's a reason we chose him, came highly recommended, and he didn't disappoint. So just do it right this time. Those old-timey, good old boy stuff, those days are over. Just enough of that stuff, all right? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Krista Vaughn.
Do I have to state my address? Yes, okay. Hi, I'm Krista Vaughn, 2917 Sheldon Street. I do live in Roseville. However, I have lived in East Bethel for over 23 years. I grew up here. My family still lives here, including my dad, Fire Chief Rodney Sano. First, let me be clear. I'm not here to speak for Chief Sano. Over the past few months, he has chosen to limit his statements to the public in an attempt to remain professional. Something that I respect greatly in him and hope others do as well. I don't have anything to say about Fire Chief Sano's dedication and commitment to the community, because if you haven't heard it already, then you haven't been listening. However, I have very little time and there's a lot to say, so I'm just gonna say some facts. So 1, since being hired in 2022, Chief Sano only received 1 performance review. Most employers will perform at least annual performance reviews, and it's very concerning, especially if there are performance concerns. There was only 1 performance review, which occurred in December 2024. There have been many false statements made about Chief Sano's qualifications. According to the job description, he was, at the time of hire, qualified, and by most standards, he is considered qualified. It's one thing for a community member to be misinformed, but it's another entirely for members on the council to be. It's equally concerning that one of the requirements of Chief Sano's performance improvement plan was the completion of a certification he had already completed. 3, the capstone report inaccurately determined call volumes. Firefighters do not respond to 30% of every call the city gets. They have to respond to 30% of all of the calls that occur during their predetermined shifts. So this means the report overestimated call volume and overestimated personnel needs. This oversight is concerning as it could have been easily verified, and the data being used is impacting important decisions. 4, findings from the report have been inappropriately skewed and positive outcomes have been ignored. I agree with statements that have been made that I recommend council release the full report. On the 10th, number 5, on the 10th, Fire Chief Sano was given a 2-hour notice that his review would be taking place that very night. Number 6, Chief Sano created a detailed report in response to his improvement plan. In respect to the new communication plan, he sent it to the city administrator to be forwarded to the council. Mr. Look failed to share this report with the council prior to his review. Number 7, Chief Sano was not given a reason for termination. Number 8, Chief Sano has the support and respect of the majority of the firefighters on East Bethel Fire Department. This is evidenced by the 13 letters of support you all received. Number 9, on my own accord, I created a petition to have Chief Sano reinstated. I emailed this to you all this morning. I hope you took the time to review it. As of 6 p.m. this evening, over 500 members of the community have signed the petition. Council, you were elected and took an oath to act in the best interests of the community. By terminating Chief Sano, you failed to do so. I ask that you issue a motion to reinstate Chief Sano. Listen to the firefighters, all of the firefighters. Listen to the community, all of the community members. That includes people who live here, who work here, who have family here, who drive through here, because this impacts everybody. So Mayor and Council, your community is watching, and we all deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sharon Metzel.
What do I want to say? It's kind of emotional for me, sorry. I don't really know what's going on at all, but all I want is peace in East Bethel. My grandpa, Joe Anderson, was the first mayor in 1957. And I want to just read a thing. I've been looking at history. It says, Mayor Joe Anderson knew the village needed a fire protection, and with the aid of other safety and public villagers, a fire department was organized May 7th in 1958. Imagine that. The firemen set to work building a fire station. The work was done by volunteers. The men worked in many ways to keep the money for the projects, dances, 4th of July carnivals, with races, games, food and dancing, the fireworks in the evening. I remember going to all the events as a little girl, because I am now 70. Yeah, my grandpa was everything to me. All money was raised to buy equipment for the fire department. It has now had 3 fire trucks and a rescue unit, as well as trained crew volunteer firemen who answer distress calls day and night. Part of the fire station is now used for town meetings and elections. And He helped the fire department. My grandpa donated the land that's on the fire department now. Where the fire department is, the ambulance, that was my grandpa's land. And I remember as a little girl, there was an ice skating rink even behind that. They did, you know. And he had, I think he was a mayor 3 terms. And do you know him, Artie? You probably remember.
Yes, I did.
You do remember. And my uncles were probably still in the fire department. Virgil Anderson is my uncle.
Virgil and Wayne were both on when I joined.
Okay, and Wayne is my godfather. And all I know is that they would want peace. I don't know really what's going on. I left here was on 9th grade, and I graduated from Morehead High. I went to be a nurse. I'm a retired nurse. Over 200 people died of me, you know. And life is short, you guys. Life is short. So, you know, with all that stuff, and then I got married in 1976. I moved to Edgeley, North Dakota. I was married to a farmer, and I farmed over 9,000 acres. Plus, I was a nurse and stuff. So anyway, I'd never been to a meeting. This is my first in my life. This is the first in my life. But what I see and stuff, I don't like it. And I live in Tri Oak Circle. And all I know is that the firemen beat the ambulance. When the ambulance comes, or if I see stuff, I'm running out of my house. If somebody's a neighbor, because I'm a retired nurse, I run right to them. And the fire department's there before the ambulance. They are. I'm just amazed. I'm really amazed. And I know, maybe you don't know, but my mom is Ardell Olson. My brother is Philip Olson. If that rings a bell, that is my brother. That's my mom. And my mom was not doing well since July on. And the first people to the house was the firefighters. They were. And they lived real close. And my mom was just, oh God, you know, whatever. So that's all I have to say, whatever. But I am here for my grandpa. Without him, you wouldn't have a fire department at all. And you wouldn't have anything. He donated everything in his time. Any questions? No? Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much.
you.
Thank you, that was beautiful.
Thanks to your grandpa.
Huh?
Thank you to your grandpa.
Yeah, he's the one that started it. And I'm looking up the history of East Bethel Township, East Bethel Village, that became City of East Bethel, 1848 to 1974. You guys can look this. He got it up, and I haven't read it. I did not that.
All right, moving on, agenda.
Consent agenda, I'd make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda without item H being included, and I would like to pull item F.
I'll second, and I have some issues with item F as well.
Okay, we have a motion second. Anything else that needs to be
Mayor,
pulled?
council members, if you could also pull 6C, minutes, March 10, 2025, city council meeting.
I'll pull C.
Okay. That said, I need a motion with the amended ones being pulled.
Yeah.
Okay. So all those in favor of A, B, D, E, G, and I?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item C.
Item C, the city attorney drafted up some changes. So I would make a motion to approve item C with these changes that shall be included in the minutes and our packets. So for public perusal.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Mayor, council members, if I could just make it clear for the record that the changes to the minutes as proposed by myself are just to clarify. Sometimes those summary minutes and so forth are a little fuzzy, and I wanted to make sure that the protocols that were read and provided by Attorney Safley to the mayor, that script was very, very clear and precise. And the minutes were just a summary, and I wanted to make sure that that script was in the minutes. So that's all that's being done there.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard, and motion passes. Item F.
Item F, let me scroll down to it here. Item F is the contract, page 58 of our packet to be B, payment 1A. Work performed by the consultant will be billed to East Bethel at a rate of $10,500 per month. My question is, will Mr. Strike be working 40 hours a week, the same as the previous fire chief? Because this is supposed to reflect what the previous fire chief was making.
Indication from Jerry is.
You want me to come up there?
Yeah, you
Sure.
might as well address that.
Yeah. Be happy to.
So Mayor, City Council, the understanding was I would be working 40 hours a week, as any other department head would be doing. I'm willing to change that any direction you would like it to be used. I will not be offended in any way. Typically in the front of these, you need some leadership to get through, the emotions and reset the train back on the ship, if you will, or on the tracks. But I'm open to anyway. The question is, and the answer is yes, 40 hours.
Okay, because there was a statement made to the last meeting that you'd work as much or as little
Right.
as needed, and
I
I want to make sure that if you're going to be doing the same, making the same as the last chief, that you are there as much as
Correct.
the last chief, and not just putting in 10 hours a week, for example.
No, I understand that. It should be mentioned, though, that I will not be responding as a firefighter. I am a consultant, and I am not part of the local government, so I don't have the insurance protections that a fire chief would have if he worked for the local government as an employee. So, for example, the last fire that we had, I stood next to the incident commander and said, "I'm your senior advisor. If you need anything, I'm right here." But as much as I want to pull a line and go in and put the fire out, I just can't do it because my insurance won't allow me.
So you'd still be responding to calls, but in the capacity of more or less an advisor. You will not be doing hands-on.
I will be responding to major incidents in my personal vehicle. So if you need something different than that, I can't provide that for you. I can provide administrative leadership, coaching, mentoring. I can look through everything that we talked about a year ago for my report and really get into the crux of it, which I have. I can develop the best recruitment plan that you've ever seen, and I can get people to come up here. I can do a lot of things, and it's really a discussion to have with the new fire chief. Should we spend 800 or our time going to 800 calls a year, or should I take that 800 hours and put it to a 2,080 a year schedule, focusing on motivating, mentoring, budget, meeting with you all, and those kinds of things. So I think the fire chief, my recommendation to the city administrator was, I think the fire chief needs to look a little different. Yes, they're speaking on behalf of the community when there's an emergency, but I'll also tell you that I have lieutenants who live in the community, who've been on 3 years, that may manage the most critical incident in this community at any given time. So it's, the fire chief can't be everywhere, but the fire officers are in sync with one another. Of course, as I mentioned, they need training, they need some good support. We need a straight chain of command. We can't have people calling you all and decisions making at the top and the bottom. All those things I mentioned in my report. But I want to be clear to the community that I will not be responding as a firefighter.
Just to major calls as an advisor.
Yes.
Okay. Mike, does this amount fall in line in what Chief Snell was making?
Yeah, I went back and double checked to reconcile what former Chief Sano was making.
Wasn't he making $54.71 an hour?
Yep. So essentially $54.71 an hour, and then the cafeteria contribution roughly comes out to $10,300. Again, doesn't take into his contribution for FICA or para, but it's roughly the same amount. Yep.
So we're paying for the cafeteria plan on a non-full-time job?
No, that was the comparison I ran.
Okay.
Yep.
Because $54.71, I mean, for a month's service only comes up to $87.53.
And then you would add in the $14.75 for Rod's cafeteria amount.
That's where my question is. We're paying Mr. Strike the cafeteria plan too?
That's where the $10,500 came
Right.
from. Yep.
Total compensation is what we're
Correct.
looking at. Yeah.
So we're not paying that, we're just paying cafeteria fund, we're just paying an equal amount because that was a bonus to the former chief. And so
Right.
in lieu of.
Right. To make an apples to apples comparison, I wanted to take we took his complete compensation package minus that para, and we just added up his hourly rate and what he received for cafeteria contribution. That was $10,300. That was Rod's, and then this contract is $10,500.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So is this, you said you'd only be available until June. Would this be a monthly contract then?
Yes.
Is that what we're kind of looking at?
Yes, or until you tell me to go away. So I'm open, I'm in a period of time where I've ended some contracts and I have new ones starting. And here I am. So you tell me what works best for you and I'm flexible.
Anything else?
Mayor, council members, on the two issues that Councilmember Mundell had raised, since I was involved in the drafting of this contract, I just wanted to let you know that Mr. Strike and I did talk about those duties and responsibilities and wanted to make sure that he continued to essentially assume the role as interim fire chief as far as being command central, but understanding that as Councilmember Mundell had indicated, he's not going to be able to pull lines and so forth and actually be actively engaged in that respect, but still needed to fulfill the role of being able to be that command individual that oversees such an event if necessary. With respect to the termination, did not want to have a situation that either party all of a sudden, especially Mr. Strike, all of a sudden say, you know, I'm no longer going to be your interim fire chief. Wanted to make sure there was sufficient notice, and that's why the 30 days was put in place. Obviously, if it's mutually agreed that less than 30 days is acceptable, that of course can be, you know, waived down the road, but by contract, at least we know that Mr. Strike has to give us at least 30 days notice prior to a termination so that we can make the adjustments as the city accordingly. those were the two things that I spent some time with Mr. Strike on. There were others, but those were the two that brought up here.
Suzanne, did you have some questions?
I do, and my questions are based on the job description, the changes in red that are on here. First, I don't understand why they deleted.
Are you in the application? for the fire
Pardon
chi-
me?
Are you in the fire chief's? You're in the wrong.
Yeah, the fire department, fire chief, City of East Bethel, job description.
Yeah,
Right,
we ain't there yet.
But this is the
Oh.
contract for the interim.
Oh, I thought this was all part of it.
No,
No.
two
Oh.
separate issues.
Okay, well then I will take that back and wait till we get to that part. Sorry.
Oh, did we pull that agenda item?
I don't think G was pulled. You can go ahead and
I
by
guess I
motion
presume
pull
this
it.
was G, what F was, and G were, I mean, this was part of F, is what I presumed, so how do we figure this out then?
The contract is the temporary guy, the next one is the one you want to hire to replace
Yeah.
the temporary guy.
So, can we pull
It's
item G?
okay, I guess we'll just have to live with this, then, right?
Well, there's a Robert's Rules of Order, and then they're just making sure that we do good governance, okay? Okay.
Right.
So, so you do have some
My
questions with
mistake.
respect to the Fire Chief Emergency Management Director as advertised. What I would suggest, if in order to have a discussion on that, that there be a motion to poll the advertisement for Fire Chief Emergency Management Director back onto the agenda for discussion and reauthorization. If that motion is then made and seconded and then passed, then of course it would be brought back to this agenda for discussion and then reapproval.
Okay, let's get
finish
through-
with F first.
Yeah.
All right, so,
So you want to, yeah, let's get this one done first, the capstone, and then we can go to that motion.
I thought it was all the same, I'm sorry.
It's okay, yeah. I'm pulling it and make it down.
So, right now you do have capstone, contract. If there's not any further discussion,
So
you
I'll
can
make a
move to
motion to approve item F on the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to re-pull item G of the consent agenda. Did I say that right?
That's fine, that'll work.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pull item G
For
Any-
reconsideration.
for
There you go.
continuation. Okay. Is discussion? Or, yeah.
Do we have to?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Discussion?
All right, my discussion is, first, I don't understand why they changed it from U.S. citizen to just legally employable in the United States. And that's on page 65. Legally authorized to work in the United States versus, and they scratched U.S. citizen. I don't understand why that happened.
Jerry, that was you and Mr. did this, I believe.
I had no involvement in that
Okay.
language change. However, I assume there are people in our country who have the right to work. And I believe the way I read it, he's trying to give opportunity to anyone to apply that has a right to work.
Correct. Yeah, technically, we're following the language in the I-9 form that each employee is required to fill out. So it's not technically U.S. citizen, it is legally authorized to work in the United States.
All right, and then my other question is why they changed the residency requirement of being in the area 30 minutes within the fire service area?
That would be pretty much, I think Jerry will confirm, but that'd be pretty much, you're going to eliminate your candidates.
Yes, and the League of Minnesota Cities typically frowns from requiring someone to get a job by distance and time. So the opportunity that we're going to be faced with is we have the city of Adnes Heights, the city of Fridley, now East Bethel, that are going to be posting at the exact same time. And this may, on a scale, probability scale, this is probably going to be the lower salary than the 3. So opening it up so people can apply. The next question is a question I asked many years ago when I was told I had to live in the city to manage a 3-city fire district. And my concern was if they're solely reliant on one person to manage the fire department, I'm not sure I want to be on the fire department. So this position is more of an administrator role. I can almost guarantee you that, you know, I'm promising to work 40 hours, but I already know I'm working more than that. So this fire chief's job is, as we say in the field, it's not for the weak. These calls, you get home at 5 o'clock and you can come back here at 6:30 to be on the job for 8 hours. So we're trying to open it up so that everybody can apply. We'd love to see the 27 candidates that were once here back in the day. I'm not sure how that's gonna happen with all the movement in the county right now.
Okay, and the only reason I brought that up is because past fire department personnel have spoken up here have said it's important to have them in close proximity to their fire station. So that's why I brought that up. I don't really have a problem with it,
Yeah.
especially with your explanation. So thank you.
I think the career chief model is changing, especially in, you know, believe it or not, you're in the metro. It's changing quite a bit. And this department is the largest department in the city. There's more volunteers in this city than you have full-time fire people. It's $1 million budget. It's a $10 million of equipment in those stations. And there's another $8 million in stations. Not only is this going to be a firefighter and a fire chief, and by law, the fire investigator and the fire marshal, by law, he's now also going to be the emergency manager. So it's a tough job. It really is. You have the weight of the shoulders on you from the time you get to work to the time you wake up the next morning. You're hoping the volunteers show up. And I don't mean that to be sarcastic. We don't know who's going to show up. I can't tell you how many times we've sat on the scene and it felt like hours. And we're seeing it already here. One en route, one person en route on a fire truck. It's a tough job. We need to open it up to people. We need to have it ready for them. We need to compensate them fairly and give them all the tools to win. And they're going to need every one of your support, every one of yours, to do their job well.
Thank you. And I do agree with you about you not going on the fire calls. I think that if you could be the best worker in the world, you could get awards left and right, but if you get promoted into a CEO position and you come to work every day and do the job you were doing, somebody is not doing that CEO job, and you have to do that. Right. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll make a motion to approve item G on the consent agenda.
Second.
Sorry for my mistake.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None being heard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. Motion passes. 7A, Kendra.
I have a couple slides for you, Mr. Mayor. This is a variance for a second driveway at 1670 229th. The Planning Commission did review this. The owner is asking for a second driveway for an accessory structure on this property that's guided R1. The city code only allows one driveway. And We don't have a survey that wasn't provided with this application. That should be standard operating procedure, but this was something that came in during the interim in the planning department. So we don't have a survey, but it looks like the current drive is about 109 feet long. The Planning Commission reviewed this at their February 25th meeting, and other than the applicant, there was no one present to speak. This is the location of the home and that driveway, and the garage is planned generally in this location. Planning Commission voted 3-1 to recommend approval with the condition that the driveway width not exceed 12 feet in width. There was, I think, a robust discussion about the variance standards at the Planning Commission meeting. The burden of proof is on the applicant to show that they have a practical difficulty that can only be remedied by the variance, and that's where the conversation was. Is the request reasonable? Is it due to unique circumstances on the property, things that don't exist on any other property in the city? And will it not have a negative impact on the neighborhood character? So as we discussed, some of the commissioners felt like there could be a second driveway coming off the main driveway. This garage could be angled. There were alternatives. However, the Planning Commission as a whole did vote to recommend approval. And so in front of you are two options: a motion to adopt Resolution 2518 approving the request for a variance as recommended by the Planning Commission with the standards and conditions in the draft resolution, or alternatively, if you find that the variance standards have not been met, there's a draft resolution for denial as well. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions?
I was out at the, well, I'll make a motion to approve this driveway.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I was out at the property this weekend and I took a look, and it's full of trees, big time everywhere, and it does make sense. It's at a cul-de-sac. It really doesn't interfere with anybody else's property, in my opinion. And if they were gonna come across, like had been noted before, you'd be taking out more trees to try to create a driveway where, in my opinion, I see nothing wrong with this. That's it.
Yeah, I agree with all that, going across the front of the front yard. It not standard.
No more discussion? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Motion passes. Item 8A, barn dominiums.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have slides for this. I'm going to try to close these slides. There we go. I don't have any slides for this item. In front of you, though, is a revised draft of the barn dominium ordinance following our discussion at the last meeting. The changes do change the residential standards section of the ordinance to allow metal siding. At our last meeting, the council generally felt like metal siding was an acceptable structure anywhere, as long as they were not standing seam. There was a comment that an alternate or a complementary material should be provided. So on page 86 of the report is the draft language that allows metal siding, and this is for all single-family homes, provided it's not standing seam and that complementary materials such as brick, stone, or wood cover at least 30% of the building's facade. That's a number that's based on some other ordinance standards, so that's worth some other ordinances that we found, so that's worth some discussion tonight. And then the other changes that we made to the ordinance allow barn dominiums in the as a permitted use in the ag and the rural residential district. Not in my staff report today was a conversation that I had with the building official who I told him I would share that he remains concerned about allowing barn dominiums. His two major concerns, again paraphrasing for him, pole barns are a concrete slab, and so I'm going to say this in layman's terms. These are not the building code terms. But it's a concrete slab, and then you stick a wooden post in the ground and a footing. And so his concern is that those wooden posts are not the same as a standard foundation. They have a tendency, in his opinion, to rot, and therefore, in terms of a long-term structural foundation, it is not the same as the foundations we require under our code today. And so this is a change from those concrete foundations around the perimeter of the building to allow that. So he has some concerns about that. What the code says today is it must be a solid, the foundation must be solid for the complete perimeter of the house, and this would not be that. The second comment that he asked that I share is that, and we talked about this at our last two meetings, there are energy code requirements with these barn dominiums. And I think there's a sense from people who want to build these that this is a cheap way to build the house. But in fact, it is not. By the time you comply with the energy code, it is really not significantly cheaper than a standard residential construction in the building official's opinion. So I feel comfortable with the ordinance as drafted, but I wanted to share those two concerns for the council to consider. I think there is a sense from staff that changing the ordinance isn't really going to allow for a lot of new barn dominiums, because I think once people look into what is actually required with the structural code, the energy code, they're going to find that it's not as appealing as they once thought it was. But with that said, I believe that the draft does reflect the direction from the council, and staff is awaiting feedback on that draft ordinance.
Should we be including something about the foundation and the energy code to address that in our ordinance?
So in terms of the energy code, that's required by the building code. I mention it because the building official has concerns that people who want to build a barn dominium don't understand what that means. That was in your packet in this attachment. But if you don't know what the energy code actually means, you might not understand the cost implications of that. So I wouldn't suggest that we add that to our code because it's already part of the building code. In terms of the foundation, that is something you could require. You could require that barn dominiums be constructed on a foundation that is solid for the complete perimeter of the house. That definitely increases the cost. That would be a standard, typical foundation. But from the building official's perspective, from a home value and long-term, what am I going to say? The foundation would be stable longer than the post-frame construction in terms of a living space. So that is something that you certainly could modify, and we could bring something back to you with his input.
Well, when discussing this, that's what I kind of assumed it'd be on a floating slab or a monolithic slab or something to that effect, that you'd have a slab and maybe one course block, and then you'd start your wall construction.
So we've got Kenda's comments.
I have a comment. I want to bring up the 30% because I kind of disagree with that number. As I looked at and relooked at the pictures of the barn dominiums, the examples that are in the packet, I honestly didn't think that a lot of those had 30%. I don't even know why we just don't put a period after stone and leave it up to, I don't know, add an I don't even know what to add to it, but I think 30% is being too restrictive. It could be 10%, 20%. Those look like they had 10 to 20% on them, most of them. Some of them had 30%. The really fancy ones look like they did, but the more basic ones look like they were 10 or 15%. And I don't really want to restrict residents any more than what we absolutely have to. I'm more about freedom and letting them judge what's appealing to their eye and not our eye.
So, I have no problem changing that percentage to say 20. If that's something that needs to be done. And I would like the building official's feedback on this as well, if he has any input on this.
I talked to Nick earlier today, prior to him talking to Kendra, and made sure that he went to Kendra and voiced his concerns, just so everybody's on the same page. And he basically told me the same thing he told Kendra, plus say when somebody goes to sell one of these buildings, how is anybody going to know if that post is rotted or not when they go to sell this? What are they buying? You know, he had concerns that way. And I don't know the life history of these posts, but I've seen where they've rotted out. But I don't know if you do. Tim, do you know anything about these?
No, I've got a pretty old pole barn and it's just fine. I'm wondering where it's getting wet from and what kind of rot or what's causing that, which I would like to know. Be on the safe side rather than the other side.
I'm not worried about the green treated. All the posts are green treated, and it's no different if you build a slab on grade home and you use a green treated plate on a block. Same concept. If the stuff gets wet, actually they claim it's supposed to be 40 years in water, and it's not supposed to rot. Have I ever did it? No, but that's what I've heard. So I mean, it's just like anything else. Like if you're going to sell something and something's hidden, you're not going to know what it is either. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of it actually myself, but that's my opinion of it.
Yeah, I think Nick's referencing his previous employment over in Columbus. Their city hall is a pole building, and they had the issue where the post rotted out.
Issues with posts?
That's what I think.
That depends on what they use for wood, too.
Right.
You know?
That's what he's referencing, I think.
Yeah.
Do the codes call for them to use green treated now in those buildings or not?
I am not certain. I'll have to check with the building official, but I do think they have to be treated. I do think they have to be treated. I will have to double check with Nick, though.
Yeah, when I built mine in 2015, it's required.
Any further discussion?
So send it back to staff, have it come back to us next meeting? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to chat with the building official and come back to address his concerns better in this draft. I just want to make sure there's a sense that we still want some complementary material, but something less than 30. Is that where the council's at?
Sure.
Yeah, can we get a range? Is there a range that's available between 10 and 30% or something like that?
A range like comparing to other cities?
Well, just a
For
range
what?
for our, for us, so we have the ability to choose what we want up front while still gaining that extra aesthetics.
so that you can make a decision? I mean, there's no
Well,
magic.
Well, the people can make a decision when they're building it, not say we want 30% or 20% and you can't do any more.
Yeah, you'd want to have a minimum. So if you felt like, you know, we want something on all sides, I would go towards the 10% side.
Right.
If it's only important to you to have it on the front, you could say only on the front. And then I'd start with a minimum of whatever you think is the minimum acceptable.
Right.
So,
I'd
yeah.
say on the front elevation only. Don't force them to do the sides or anything like that. It's just appearance from the road usually.
Yeah, street facing, that's what they require with any garages or anything, additional buildings you're putting on. You have to have 2 windows and a awning or something like that, some decorative item.
Okay, yep, we will bring that back. We'll give you another version at your next meeting to take a look at. That'll include the building official's recommendation on the foundation for you to consider. Again, the building code allows the pole barn. I keep saying foundation, but it's not a foundation, slab with posts. And our building official has concerns and would prefer that it be on a foundation. But I will bring that back for you with a little more information at the next time I come back.
Yeah, because I'm not into construction very much, and I don't really know what a difference is between a slab and a foundation, because, I mean, most houses have basements, and to me, that's the foundation, so I don't even know. I'd like more
I'll try to bring some
detail.
visuals.
Yes, thank you.
Those are pretty much the last 2 things we need to worry about on that one, correct?
Yeah, I think so. The only other thing I was going to mention, and I forgot, is that we do not have a minimum lot size. One of the other things the building official just questioned was, you know, why don't we say it has to be on 5 acres or more? And I feel like we did talk about that with you, and you were comfortable just saying in the rural residential and ag district and not having a minimum lot size in those districts.
Yeah, I wouldn't be for that. I mean, it's no different if you go into a neighborhood that has a couple ramblers, then you got a split and stuff like that. I mean, the homeowner should have their own choice of what the house looks like. And we shouldn't be deciding for them, saying, no, you can't put that there because we don't like it. If they like it, it's their deal. I don't want a minimum or a minimum lot size at all. That's my opinion.
And I did notice that where I can't find it right now, but where it said the RR or ag district, it was just A and not AG. So there's kind of a G missing in that particular area.
I'll double check that. There's a mistake between the zoning map and the zoning ordinance. So I think it's ag in the zoning ordinance, but I'll check and bring that back. Thank you.
All right, that it? Let's move on. 9A, staff report.
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing further.
Okay. 9B, council reports. No, none. Tim?
No, I had written up some stuff tonight, but this meeting was very informative, very civil, got a lot of stuff done, and I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Suzanne?
I just have some announcements regarding the seniors. They do meet every 3rd Thursday, so if you're over 55 and want to become a member, please do. But that being said, April 26th, there's going to be a craft vendor sale over there at the community center. We are still accepting vendors, so contact me if you're interested. And we would like the city to put that information on the reader board. So if you could pass that on, I'd appreciate it. And May 3rd, there's going to be a Fix It clinic over there. So if you have small appliances, vacuums, anything that you can carry, microwave, bring it on up, and there's going to be people over there fixing stuff for you. So that's all I have.
Small engines?
I don't think, maybe a lawnmower.
We had a Booster Day meeting. July 19th is Booster Day, or party in the park. at Booster Park. The committee urges the council members to save the date. The parade will be back, which is fantastic. If there are any local organizations or businesses that are interested in being in the parade, visit eastbethelboosterdays.com. Volunteers are needed. It could be just for 1 hour or the whole day if you like. It could be for setup, to help set up the day before, or for a takedown that evening. If anyone's interested in volunteering, there is a volunteer page on eastbethelboosterdays.com, and we are looking for applications that are being accepted for vendors, artists, and crafters. So if you have something to sell, you want a booth, want a space there at East Bethel Booster Days, please visit the website, and there are applications there. And tomorrow evening, there is a planning and zoning meeting that I'll be attending. That's it.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.